Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Shaun Stevenson Books. I'm Shaun Stevenson, author of the Throne series, and today we are rounding up all of the books I read in the month of January 2024. Usually January is a slump reading month for me because in December I often binge read a ton of books. And so in January I get to a point where I'm thinking, I read a bunch of books last month, I'm going to take a little bit of a break from reading and then I'll get back to it in February. But this year I read 14 books in January, which I was really excited about. So some of these I had been meaning to get back to these series after a very long time. Some of them were new finds that I had just picked up that I read this month. So let's get into it. There's a lot of fun books here. So the first one I read was Kingdom Keepers 3, Disney in Shadow by Ridley Pearson. This is the third book in the Kingdom Keepers series, which is a series all about these kids who they decided to become part of this program with Disney Imagineering. So the Imagineers take these kids and they turn them into holograms where they can be in the parks helping guests during the day. But at nighttime, the real kids find out that when they fall asleep, they end up in the parks in the hologram because of a glitch in the system. So in this book, they're fighting against all of these different Disney villains that also come alive during the night, like Maleficent, Captain Hook. So there's all these different characters that come alive and they're fighting against them because these evil villains, the Overtakers, are trying to take over the Disney parks. So in this book, the kids are going into Epcot and Hollywood Studios to try and save their friend Wayne, who is one of the Disney Imagineers. And can they save him in time, or will they be too late? That is The Kingdom Keepers 3, Disney in Shadow. This was a fun book. It was a long book. It kind of meanders a little bit, but the Disney and the action scenes are what pull you into these books and keep you going. The mysteries are always a little bit head scratching of like, wait, how did you get to this conclusion? I don't really understand. But that's fine. It was still fun. The next book I read was R.L. Stine's Fear Street, The Thrill Club. This was so far my favorite Fear Street book. I really enjoyed this one. This one is about a group of teenagers at Shadyside High School who they have a thrill club where they come together and they talk about all these scary stories that they come up with, and suddenly some of the scary stories are coming true. How is it happening? What is happening? And who is behind it is the question. This was a really fun thrill ride, no pun intended. Wow. This was a fun book to read. The mystery is pretty good. I guessed a piece of it pretty early on, but then other parts of it I did not guess till the very end. So it was a great book to read in this series. I think if you really like mysteries with a little bit of a thriller edge to them, these are right up your alley. This one had a tiny bit of a supernatural piece to it, only very tiny though. It was like a small bit of supernatural, but the rest of it was mostly a thriller murder mystery. That was The Thrill Club by R.L. Stine in the Fear Street series. And then the next book that I read was Spine Chillers number 11, Hospitals Make Me Sick. Now this book was the worst in the series. This might have been the worst book I read this whole entire month. It just was not up to par of what I wanted in a Spine Chillers book. Some of the other ones are all of the other ones are a lot better than this one. This book just meandered. It made no sense. It had an ending that I still do not understand. My brother finally read this book and I asked him and I said, okay, what do you think the ending was all about? And he said, I have no idea. I don't understand what was happening at the end. So we both are just wondering, what is the end of this book? So this one, Spine Chillers Mysteries, is a Christian Goosebumps ripoff series where these kids go through, it's an anthology series, so there's always different kids, but in this one, these kids go to this hospital where there is mysterious things happening. What exactly is happening? I have no idea because I could not understand the ending. So it just made no sense at all. This book was not that good. So that was Spine Chillers number 11, Hospitals Make Me Sick by Freddie Katz. But then switching to a different Christian Goosebumps ripoff series, the Heebie-Jeebies book 5, The Ice Cream Truck. This was a good one. I really enjoyed this book. This book took me on a journey that I did not expect. I never know what to think about some of these Christian Goosebumps ripoff series, like where it's going to go, what's going to happen, because often they don't have monsters or creatures in them. And so I'm always wondering, like, how are you going to build this suspense here? What's going to happen? And this book quickly turned from what I would say is like a spooky story into a thriller. And I did not expect that from Heebie Jeebies, the ice cream truck, but it is what happened. And this book, I actually really liked it. I don't know if it's my favorite of the series yet. I'm still reading through this series. I have 5 more to go. This is book number 5, but this one was a fun read. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I can say if you're a super Goosebumps fan who likes the monsters and creatures of Goosebumps, if you should read this one. I would more say if you like a middle grade kids book that has like thriller aspects to it, that is more what this is, with some kind of spooky overlay. So this one was pretty good. I enjoyed this book quite a bit. So going from one of the worst spine chillers books in the series to one of the better ones, and the next book I read was Spine Chillers Mysteries, book number 12, A Haunted Mind is a Terrible Thing to Waste, by Freddie Katz. And this one was a lot better. This one also put the characters in some really genuine danger. In some of the Spine Chillers books, they do a lot of fake outs where it's, the sound outside the window and, oh no, what is it? Oh, it's a tree branch tapping the window, that kind of thing. But this book, there's legit dangerous things happening, and these kids could be killed like so many times by what is going on around them. They're exploring this western ghost town in this book and thinking about turning it into a campground. And this western ghost town has been just abandoned for years and years. And I was thinking about it, and I said this in my review video of this book, but I really don't think there was a Goosebumps book set in a western ghost town, which I think is a very fascinating thing. I was like, wow, I'm surprised R.L. Stine never picked up on that or did anything with that idea. But this book takes place in a western ghost town. It has a really creepy legend attached to it that I thought was just bone chilling. I really did. I was thinking, oh, that is real disturbing. But this one has kind of that same ending where there's a thriller piece to it, and who the villains are is a great mystery. So I did not guess it all the way to the end. So that was Spine Chillers, book number 12, the last book in the series by Freddie Katz. A Haunted Mind is a Terrible Thing to Waste. And then jumping to another Spine Chillers series, I also read Spine Chillers Book 2. This is a different Spine Chiller series. This one is a little older, and this was by Jim Razzie. And this is a collection, it's a very short collection, of some short, spooky stories. And these were good. I thought, wow, you went in, you made a really spooky story, and then you finished it off before it took too long or lingered for too long. And this one had some great spooky story ideas that I thought, wow, this is a kid's book? That is really creepy. So I really enjoyed reading this book. I think that the stories, like I said, they come quick, but they are worth reading. This is another kind of anthology type series where all the different stories are different characters. There's different kinds of creatures, from gargoyles to zombies to vampires, all the different things. And like I said, they just have some great setups. I just kept thinking, that's a great setup. Oh, that's a great setup, over and over and over again. So that was Spine Chillers Book 2 by Jim Razzie, Creature Feature. And then I also read this month an ebook. I don't usually read ebooks that often. I like the feel of a physical book in my hand while I'm reading, but sometimes I do read an ebook here and there. And this month I read a really fascinating ebook. This ebook was by Ken Williams, and it's called Not All Fairy Tales Have a Happy Ending. The whole book is the story of how he and his wife Roberta Williams created some of the most classic PC games like King's Quest and King's Quest IV, etc. And it was such a great story about creativity and about how if you are scrappy and kind of go for it, you can kind of make something out of your dreams. And really, one of my favorite parts of this book was the fact that Ken and Roberta Williams worked together. I think that there's something really awesome about people who are so close, who can work together well, and they really work together well. They had a great relationship and a great team. in each other. And so this book, it really does go through, though. There's some drama. There's a lot of drama in this book because the real life story of Sierra Games Online goes through some ups and downs. That some of the downs are, I sat back and I thought, whoa, I do not know what to do with what just happened to this company. And this was real life. There are so many great moments too in this book. I think that it was really cool to see Ken and Roberta Williams sometimes taking on some really big names and kind of telling them, nope, we're not doing that. And I thought that was really, really awesome to see. The downfall of Sierra Games Online, you can look it up, but I would actually recommend go read this book. I think it was really fascinating. There are throughout the book some interludes where Ken Williams talks about different things in society that he thinks. I could have taken or left those, but I thought that they were always interesting to kind of get into the mindset of a person who's an entrepreneur, who's always thinking that way, as well as digging into just this whole mindset behind what he and his wife did to create some of the most famous games in PC history. So definitely check it out. If you like biographies or autobiographies, this was a great read, especially if you're really interested in things like creativity or computer gaming or any of the computer programming, those kinds of things. This will be a very fascinating read to you. So I highly recommend it. That was Not All Fairy Tales Have a Happy Ending by Ken Williams. And then the next book I read was The Monster's Ring by Bruce Coville. And this book, I really enjoyed this book. I have a review of it up on my channel, so I won't say a ton about it here, but this one was just a lot of fun, nothing like I expected. It's in the Magic Shop series of books that Bruce Coville has that include Jeremy Thatcher Dragon Hatcher and Jennifer Murdley's Toad. So this one was a lot of fun to read. It had some great fantasy kind of stuff, a little bit of horror to it. So this was The Monster's Ring by Bruce Coville. And then I read probably the most disturbing book this month, which was Shivers Book 10, The Curse of the New Kid by M.D. Spencer. Oh, the Shivers books. I don't know what to think about these books. I am still reading them. I'm going to keep reading them, but this was actually a very, very disturbing story about a kid who is new at a school who has the power to, when someone bullies him, terrible things happen to that bully, or teacher who does terrible things, or principal who does terrible things. And this story was very frightening. I thought it was a very, very scary book in the sense of what was happening, but also very disturbing. Some of the scenes where people get hurt are very, very creepy and very just gross. I will just say there's one part where one of the bullies gets his arm caught in a bus door, and I just thought, I don't want to read this. I don't want to read this. This is not what I'm here for. So this one was a pretty disturbing book. I don't think I can recommend it. I did read it all the way through because I wanted to know what happened, but it definitely was. So out of the 3 Shivers books I've read so far, I really like Terror on Troll Mountain the best. I thought that one was very scary, had a great plot, lots of action, lots of suspense, but wasn't this same level of kind of disturbing that this book and Who's Coming to Dinner also had. So read if you dare, I guess I could say, but I don't know. Have you read any of these Shivers books? Are there other ones that are this disturbing? Because this one bothered me a lot. And then I haven't reviewed this one on the channel yet, but I'm going to. It's in my review pile, and it is R.L. Stine's Fear Street, The Boy Next Door. Oh boy, this book. Okay, so this one was interesting because you really do know who is behind everything from the very beginning. From the first chapter, you find out who is behind all of it. And I will say the first chapter was so shocking and so just, it made me sit back and think, whoa, I can't believe that just happened. These books continue to do this. I feel like R.L. Stine, every time I read a Fear Street book, I read that first chapter and I'm just sitting there thinking, wow, I don't know how I could stop reading this because I want to know what happens. And that was so shocking and so thrilling and so suspenseful. So this book was very interesting because you have a main character who is very tortured by the actions of others. And I think one of the things about this book that I continue to think that these Fear Street books have so many deeper layers than other kinds of books that R.L. Stine wrote. Like Goosebumps just doesn't have these deep layers like Fear Street does. So this book is really about like victim blaming and kind of taking that idea of this character is telling these other people that are being killed or stalked that you're making me do this to you. I have to do this to you. And so it's just an interesting take on responsibility of your own actions. And I think that that message is a very interesting one because not a lot of books tackle this kind of topic of, taking responsibility for the things that you do and the actions you take that hurt others, instead of trying to say, well, I had to do that because they were doing this. And so I think this book has a great suspense. It's more on the suspense side than a mystery. There's not really a lot of mystery to this book. You kind of, like I said, you kind of know who's behind it from the very beginning, but there is a lot of suspense and a lot of moments where you're thinking, don't go in there, don't go over there, don't do that, because you as the reader know what's going on. So if you like that kind of a thriller where you kind of know who the villain is from the beginning and you are more just thinking, oh, don't get in that car, don't go in that house, don't go down that street, that kind of suspense is your thing, then this is the book for you, The Boy Next Door. And then on to lighter fare, I also read Champion's Quest Book 2, The Questmaster's Trap by Frank L. Cole. I just put up a review of this book on the channel, and this one was a lot of fun. If you like fantasy, you like Dungeons and Dragons type stories, this is the book for you. This is about a group of characters, these kids who are playing this like live action Dungeons and Dragons game in the world, the fantasy world that it's in, where they fight monsters, they have to find weapon upgrades, they have to solve puzzles, all that kind of thing. And Frank Cole does a great job weaving this story together. I really enjoyed it. I can't recommend this series enough. This is book 2. There's only 2 books in the series from what I can tell. I'm not sure if there's going to be a 3rd book, but at least we got 2, and they are very good and a lot of fun. And then, this book. I don't even know really what to say about it, but I also read Gooflumps by R.U. Slime. Stay Out of the Bathroom, book 2.5 in the Gooflumps series. This is a straight up parody series of the Goosebumps books, and it is ridiculous. And it had the most puke humor and just all that kind of stuff. I have never read a book with that much puking in it. I think that it was really gross in a lot of ways, but it was still entertaining. And what was interesting was it does make fun of a lot of Goosebumps tropes. So you have a lot of that kind of thing going on. This book did come out in the 90s, in the height of the Goosebumps era, and it was put out by Random House, which I think is so funny because they were a Scholastic competitor. And so it's like this competitor publisher putting out a book to make fun of the Goosebumps books and the kind of tropes and the plot lines that the Goosebumps books always have. And you can't even guess the final ending of this book. It is just so out there and so ridiculous that I just don't even know what else to say about it. It's so ridiculous. But I still enjoyed reading it. It wasn't the worst. So read this if you dare. It is, it's an experience, that's for sure. And then I read another book that I really enjoyed. This one was by Matt McMahon, and it was book number 1 in the Monsteria series, Escape from Grimstone Manor. This book was a ton of fun. It starts off with these kids at an amusement park going on this dark ride into a haunted mansion, and it just goes from there. And it is a lot of fun. There are a lot of fun monsters. There's a lot of fun, just creepy atmosphere, and the action scenes are really well done. And I just thought, yeah, this is a great book. Highly enjoyed it. There's a review up on my channel of this book. Go check that out if you want to know more about Monsteria's Escape from Grimstone Manor. And then the last book I read this month, it might be my favorite. I think it might be because it was so good and I so enjoyed it. And it's R.L. Stine's Ghosts of Fear Street, book number 4, Nightmare in 3D. This book, I sort of want to do a Let's Discuss video about this because This book, these Ghosts of Fear Street books, let me just back it up because I have so many thoughts about it. These Ghosts of Fear Street books were all ghost written by different authors, and I'm so curious to know if R.L. Stine was giving any sort of outline to these authors to say, hey, here's what I want to have happen, or just here's a basic premise, go take it and do a book about it, and we'll put the R.L. Stine Ghosts of Fear Street on the cover. So this one is by Gloria Hattrick, and this book, this is so great. It's about a kid who wears glasses, so I identify. There's about a kid who wears glasses, and he is trying to see a stereogram. Stereograms are like those magic eye 3D images that used to be out in the 90s, where if you kind of looked at it real close or you squinted and kind of crossed your eyes a little bit, then you could see the image that was hidden inside the picture. And it would always be this 3D picture that would kind of pop out of the image when you finally got to see it. Like, and they did kind of simple shapes and things, but some of them got more complicated as time went on. And I loved them as a kid when they came out. This kid cannot see them, and everyone at school is talking about them. And so then he stops by this local kind of creepy 5 and dime store on the way home because he sees that there's a contest. If you can see the mystery image in the stereogram and you send in a postcard to the company, they'll send you a prize. And so he buys one of these stereograms because he's determined to try and see it and to see what it is before anybody else. And when he gets it home, he lays it out and he discovers there's something inside this stereogram that wants to get out. And when the thing finally does get out, the kid is the only one who can see it. And what I was thinking about this book as I thought about it was, this book is all about just the ways that people see the world around them and the ways that we sometimes can see things or not see things. So, like, for instance, this kid wears glasses, and there are multiple times throughout the book where he does not have his glasses because a bully takes them, etc. And so he's trying to squint and just see this creature and figure out where it is and how he can find it and trap it back in the stereogram. And so as he's going through this whole thing, he can't really see. If you wear glasses, there's varying levels of why people wear glasses. And so, when I take off my glasses, it is very blurry and it is hard to see things. And so for this kid who his whole life, he cannot see things and he cannot see this stereogram, now he's finally the one who sees it, but he does not want to see this thing because he is the only one who can see it. And so I think it's really an interesting take on just people who are able to see things that others cannot, and just the whole idea of like a kid who wears glasses. I think that it's a great storyline and a really great one for kids who wear glasses, maybe that are struggling with wearing glasses and are not so keen on the idea, so to speak. And so this book also, the other thing I want to say about it is I really appreciated that at one point the kids decide to go ask an adult for help, which very rarely happens in a lot of these books. Usually the kids are like, I don't want to talk to the adults are boring, they're not going to help me, they're not going to believe me, etc., etc. And I think Harry Potter, that whole series really solidified this idea in middle grade fiction of don't talk to the adults because they're not going to help us, or they're going to shut us down, or they're not going to believe us. And I think that happens definitely sometimes, but it can't happen every time. And I think that sometimes adults can help kids. So I think in the sense of, parents with their kids and working with them and helping them through like tough things in life, I was just so appreciative in this book that the kids go to ask one of the teachers, who's the science teacher, for help. And I won't say what happens with that plot line because it takes a turn that I wish it hadn't. But I think I was glad that the kids did go and talk to an adult. So at the end of the day, I really enjoyed this Ghosts of Fear Street book. This is 2 for 2 for me so far. I've read The Ooze and now Nightmare in 3D, and I loved both of them. The action is so good. It is so suspenseful. It is so terrifying. You're just sitting there thinking, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to solve this? And even when you think they've come up with a solution, it backfires, and it's just so good. I loved it so much. So that is all of the books I read in January 2024. Have you read any of these books? If so, put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. What books are you reading in February 2024? I've got a lot of books to read, so I'm going to go ahead and get reading. So until next time, everybody, keep reading. Bye.